Hey everyone, this is Dr. Noel Liu again on another episode of our Secure Dental Podcast, where we bring in different individuals, leaders, and group people from the dental industry to come and share their knowledge and their expertise. Today we have a real treat. I have my mentor from NYU College of Dentistry, Dr. Eric Studley. Now, before we introduce him, I want to take a few minutes just to kind of go over who this man is. I mean, most of the success that I had in my practice, it's because of him and for all the tips that he's been giving me when I was in dental school. So Dr. Studley has a long, diverse career in the dental profession and assists dental professionals daily with challenges of building successful careers. He owns an insurance firm which specializes in insurance needs of dentists and healthcare professionals. Adding to his unique understanding of what dentists need to know, he mentored dental students as a clinical associate professor and group practice manager at NYU College of Dentistry for over 33 years. Dr. Studley shares his expertise in the areas of ethics, insurance planning, case acceptance, and risk and practice management in his professional speaking engagements. He has consistently been the highest ranked disability producer in the United States with the Guardian Life Insurance Company and was inducted into the Guardian Disability Circle of Excellence, which is the most prestigious honor awarded to a disability income specialist. So Dr. Studley retired from NYU College of Dentistry in 2018, where he served as the Director of Practice Management, where he developed and delivered a 3-year curriculum to guide dental students in developing practice management skills. Now, Dr. Studley is also speaker for the American Dental Association Practice Management Program. He has established articles in many dental journals and was a contributing author of a textbook called Dental Practice, Get in the Game. So without further ado, we just wanted to take this few minutes just to outline Dr. Studley, my mentor, my guy. Dr. Studley, the floor is yours.
Well,
so let's get started.
No, thank you. And I always say after that, I don't think I should say anything more. And let's just end it at this point, because this is so now the pressure's on to take it from there. But no, thank you so much. And on the flip side, it's so nice for me to see someone like you, as well as so many of my, graduates, who have really taken it, I always say, we all get the opportunity. It's a matter of what do you do with it now? So I'm going to let you start and
you told me that this. Years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dr. Studley here. How did you get started with New York University?
I'm
taking you back 33
years and even further. So I graduated from NYU Dental School in 1985. In my senior year, I was already being groomed to, come back, right after graduation and start as a part-time faculty. And back then, you were able to come in when I was initially hired, like a day a week. It was an actual volunteer position. You weren't even paid for it. But number one, when I graduated, and this isn't like a commercial, but I knew that was just the beginning of learning. I just, they gave me enough tools to now go out there and learn more. So I knew that I always wanted to be associated academically, but I also wanted to, because one of the main reasons of going into dental school, at least in my generation of dentists, were we all wanted to own our own practices. We all wanted to own our own businesses.
Right.
Now that somewhat has changed for the new dentist, but that really was our goal. And I've always been a very independent person. So it was, give me the chance, give me the opportunity, I'll make it work. And then you'll want to, I'll prove myself and you want to give me more opportunities. And, that was, first of all, entering dental school and then graduating from NYU. And from the day I graduated, started working, didn't do a residency then, was already married and already, planning the family. So, and also had like the most amount of NYU loans you could have back then. Okay. I used to say my loans had loans.
We don't want to hear the number now.
Right. No, because you would think that that's, nothing compared to, but everything is relative. But I started working, I think I worked for 3 or 4 different dentists, working like 21 days a month without a day off. And I just felt that, that was only going to be a temporary situation for me. So I just, learned everything, any job that I took, and whether, independent of the type of practice, type of patients, everybody was always treated at, the highest of level. And after working for different kind of groups of dentists, after 1 year, I decided to go out on my own and purchased an old, declining practice in Brooklyn, New York, and which was doing maybe 2 days a week when I purchased it. And within 6 months, we turned that practice into a 7-day-a-week practice with over 100 new patients a month.
There was something that caught my attention. You were like, after school, after graduation, you knew that it was just a beginning. Why was that? Because I see like a lot of kids coming out of school now, they have the same thing where they have this urge where they need a mentor. How important is that? And what were your thought process at that time?
Well, especially because there was just so much that I could learn there. Everybody always complains in the dental schools, there's a core procedure. And why do we have to do it this way? Well, learning the core procedure, and that's not just in dentistry, that's not just in healthcare, learning the core procedures of everything in finances, the core procedures in contracting, getting a grip of the core procedures, that just gives you the groundwork to now take it to the next level. When I graduated dental school in 1985, I think we had maybe 1 or 2 lectures on implants, and it was pretty much they fail. That was pretty much, here's your implant lectures. I remember we had maybe 1 lecture in regards to HIV, because that was just really in the forefront. But, did we have all of this kind of infection control going on initially? We didn't even wear gloves at the beginning. So from the way I entered dental school and the way I finished dental school was a completely, different practitioner. And that was just the beginning. I learned implants after I graduated. I learned veneers after I graduated. We learned the term aesthetic dentistry after we graduated. But, being able to teach that 1 day a week, and, people say, wow, you were just starting out. You still taught a day a week. You lost money. You could have been producing that day. No, in reality, if I didn't learn what I learned, then I wouldn't have been able to offer to the patients in my 2nd year out, in my 3rd year out, my 4th year out. Like, I was just constantly learning new stuff because I had to teach you, Noel.
Exactly.
So before you learned, I had to learn. And when these things were just coming out, bonding agents even, all these little tiny things that are just sort of taken for granted now. They were not matter of fact, and we didn't have the same materials. So, are you going to be the dentist that is still doing what he did, when he graduated 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I find those dentists that are holding on to so many of the old school principles, or like, well, this is the way I was taught, this is the way it was always done, this is the way it'll be, is not necessarily giving, number one, their patients the optimum treatment, but themselves. And you'll find those dentists get very bored in dentistry.
True.
Like you have to stay excited in anything you do. In finance, in the insurance, I am constantly learning stuff. And as soon as I learn these things, like the reason why I learn them is because I want to then be able to, offer them to my clients. And here's a very important thing that, I always would tell the students and young dentists first starting out. When you're new at this job, there's so many things that you haven't seen yet. And there's so many things that because you haven't had experience with it yet, you don't know how to handle the situation yet. So it's okay to be aware of how good you are at some things and how good you are not at certain things. And you will know that you will reach a certain level of expertise, and maybe also putting the ego away a little bit to, where when you were in dental school, you did a certain procedure. When you were in your residency, you did a certain procedure. Now you're working in a practice, and maybe you're the only dentist there some days. Maybe you want to think twice about doing that extraction. And maybe it might be better served sending the patient to the specialist for those procedures. And that's something that the general dentist, the young general dentist, has to learn, especially when you're working as an associate, when you're working for other dentists. You have to be able to say, if they give you a treatment plan, and, can you go into room 2 and, take out number 1, and you're like, sure, you go in and you're like, oh my God, look at this, it's partially impacted. Really not great at extractions. I think I told them that at the interview, but I don't want to not do it. And then, they won't keep me on. And you don't want to get into something that you can't take out completely. And I hear that, unfortunately, a lot with some young dentists, but also with some dentists that have been out a number of years and are doing certain procedures that they may do the procedure, but if something goes wrong, they really don't know how to take themselves out of that. And another lesson that, I always taught, like, if we do this, you have to be able to take care of, even if something goes a little off track, because it does, you need to be able to take care of that. And if you can't take care of that, that's like number one reason why you refer.
Don't do it. Right. Yeah, that's such a great point you just said, because there are my associates right now too, and they love implants. We do tons of them, right? And everybody wants to get their hands wet with implants. And the minute something goes wrong, they're like, oops, hands washed. Okay, what do I do next? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
refer to the specialist,
Yeah. And I love the fact you mentioned that, because if you cannot, manage a complication, just don't start it at that time. So when is a good time for these young grads or even dentists in a few years to start saying, hey, maybe I want to give this a try. Maybe I want to try that and I want to get better at it. What would you suggest?
Mm-hmm.
Like taking more courses, getting more hands-on experience, getting a mentor?
First of all, having a mentor, and it's funny when you're a student in school, it's like the mentor to you just means, the person you could go to, that's friendlier. It's like the friendlier professor. You kind of choose based on those things, if they're approachable. And then you kind of graduate, you finish residency, And now you go work in practices, you could be in different states and you really don't know anybody. And you kind of don't cultivate that mentor relationship. And, at this point, I still have my mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I have my dental mentors. I have my financial mentors, and I have my advisory group
Nice.
of, like the guys that I can call that have been with me forever, and, some of my most trusted advisors, my attorneys that I work with, accountants that have been with me through, the Studley life. Like these are really true mentors that I can turn to, and they're not necessarily going to tell me what I want to hear.
Right.
They're going to tell me what I need to be told. And like, it's not like a sign of weakness to have your mentor. To me, I think it's a kind of the sign of strength, because it just says, wow, look who I have behind me.
Correct.
And I'm quite fortunate to be, whether you want to call me the mentor, the go-to guy. I get so many calls, and I mean, just in our financial company, we insure, more than 8,000 dentists throughout the United States. And same thing when I practice dentistry, the same thing, it's really no different. It's just, what's my product? So my product was dentistry then. Now, my product here is finances. It's no different, because the principles of all of that stuff is the same.
100%.
I was used to, when the students would apply for residency programs and you get the pass applications, and there's a questionnaire that you have to complete. And there was one of the questions on there about ethics, and it was a 4-choice answer. So it was an A, B, C, and D. So either you were completely ethical, somewhat ethical, just ethical, or not ethical. And I was actually on the committee back then, and I posed that it should really, I didn't agree that there were grades of ethics. It's either you are or you aren't. So they actually made it a 2-question. It was just an A or B check. But then I also asked them to make it the first question of the evaluation, so that if any of us should check off not ethical, there's no reason to complete the rest of the recommendation. It's like, move on. Because to me, that is the number one barometer. And you know what? With the students, with my employees, with our salespeople, mistakes are a great thing, that as long as you, number one, own up to it, it hasn't been detrimental, and you then figure out a way how this doesn't happen again. Companies, dental practices that, the assistant might make a mistake, front desk might make a mistake, the associate, somebody might make a mistake, and they bury it. They don't bring it up. And then it just gets worse. And it's the kind of thing that if, there's a mistake that was made, number one, you work on fixing it. Number two, you bring it up at our weekly meeting. And it's like, all right, so what went wrong this past week? But what systems did we put in so that this doesn't happen again? So that patient doesn't fall through the cracks, that the lab workers followed up better. Like if so-and-so is out sick that week, like it's okay when these things happen. It's not okay when you don't put the systems in. And we're in, our financial firm has been in business now over 28 years. And oh my God, the way we did things at the beginning and the way we do things now, so different. And it's just morphed that way. And your employees, are not afraid to bring something up.
And you encourage that, right? In your own business right now?
Oh, totally. I mean, we don't encourage mistakes. So I will tell you that.
No. So when something happens,
yeah, let's bring it up.
And I got a follow-up question with that as well.
Sure.
What's more terrible, like sweeping it under the rug or blaming somebody else?
I don't know if we could even choose one over the other. Sweeping it under the rug is completely horrendous and wrong, and blaming somebody else is also, and that's a great scapegoat kind of thing. And I think maybe when we were little kids, we looked to blame somebody else because we didn't want to get punished or something like that, So I know my older brother and my younger brother, they used to blame me because I was the middle one. But I think like back again, in dental school, one of the things that, Noel, when you were in school, you didn't have this formally, but the students much later on had a whole self-assessment of their 4 years. That it was a 4-year project kind of thing. But I think that, I was taught to self-assess, from pre-clinic on, or even when I was doing something at the house, I was cutting the lawn. It's like, oh, how come the lawn, is not growing here? Like, you self-assess. If you really want to do things right, you self-assess. And I think that is one of the most important things that we need to do. We do a procedure, or, you do something in the house, you do something with your family, we should always say, could I have done that better, and what could I have done better? The blame is just another way of, sweeping it under the rug, because eventually,
but I think,
it's going to happen.
But I think that it's a lot of times it has to do with people's own code of ethics in order to self-assess them, in a true way, because I see it as if you are not ethical, or you are always blaming somebody, or you're a victim in every single situation, your self-assessment could be drastically different than someone who's holding themselves accountable every single day. And what you just mentioned, that, that ethics are non-ethical or non-ethical, I mean, I think that's great with just two choices. Can't be having 4.
Right.
So in your thing here, you came out of college, you went to school, you did your school, you graduated, you got your own practice. Now, I know that you own your insurance firm. After how long in practice, and what made you decide to go into insurance? And what was the reason behind that? Because I know that a lot of times you love people. Your charisma is like A+ stellar all the time. And which is why everybody got attracted to your clinic group, including myself, right? So with the insurance thing, how did this all come about?
Things happen sometimes, when you least expect. And after practicing a little more than 10 years, I started having problems with my hands.
So 10 years you were in practice?
Instruments.
Okay.
I was in practice for about 10 years and it started having problems, with my hands, fingers, arms, and, running a very successful practice. I was actually going into my second location. I'd already had negotiated the space. So I was already, on to the next, the next project, because I had a solid staff where I was. I had someone that I was bringing in as I was elevating to partnership level, an associate who was with me for years, also a former graduate as well, which was great. He was from the neighborhood, and it worked out perfect for everybody. And I started having to change the way I was doing my delivery system. I always worked true four-handed. Um, like, it was beautiful. It was a symphony. And it was just so efficient with the patients as well. It really was great. And I could work, multiple rooms, and it really was really nice. But I had to kind of stop doing that. And I started doing a rear delivery because in case I dropped an instrument, things like that. So over the course of a year, I went to see a number of different doctors, specialists, and I had to have bilateral carpal tunnel surgery done, as well as bilateral median nerve surgery. So just to tell you how much of a, workaholic,
Wow.
after the year I did, I had to have the surgery. I did both arms at the same time, simply because I can then go through 3 months of rehabilitation,
One
PT,
time.
and then hopefully, one time, and then go back to work, as opposed to do one arm, next arm, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, that just started a whole cavalcade of additional surgeries. And after 2 or some odd years of going through a bunch of surgeries, and I was in and out of the office, I had associates working for me, but it wasn't me,
Sure.
and like you said, Noel, like the patients, you really develop a relationship with them. And, and I knew everything about all my patients. I knew their children were my patients. Their parents were my patients. Like I had that kind of practice, and it was like, everybody wanted me to treat their family. We never asked for referrals. There was no
It
marketing
was
back
automatic.
then.
Right. It was automatic. So when you were going through all this series of surgeries, what was going through your mind at that time, and you couldn't see all these patients?
I will tell you, in a major depression, as far
Okay.
as that, because here was something that I built that took me, like my dream from when I was in, I looked at my junior high school autograph book, and even in there, what it says, what do you want to be? And it already said, doctor or a dentist. Like that was, I was going into something like that. And took me a long time to get to dental school because I applied to NYU for 2 years and didn't get accepted. So
Right.
I left the country and I went to dental school in Guadalajara, Mexico for 2 years.
Wow.
Then I got accepted to NYU, but I had to start all over. So I had to do those 2 years they didn't accept. So I had to do another 4. So,
Got it.
it was a long, long road for me, but I got there. And, also at this point, I'm married. I have 2 children.
Mm,
So to take it lightly and say that I wasn't freaking out,
sure.
I really was. And, I was working and we were saving, but, I'm out, 10 years and, with NYU loans, like that's what I had my loans down to
Right.
a couple of years left, but I was still pounding those loans off, putting money into retirement, saving money for the kids' college. We had a mortgage at that point, and I was really, not looking at the greatest of future. And I had a disability policy, which unfortunately didn't come through for me. And
Oh, wow.
so when I actually, was still teaching, but, and I even, at that point I was, made assistant professor and 3 days a week. But teaching is passion and love and education. At least at NYU, it's, you're not there for the money. If you
Correct.
go to teach for the money, don't teach. But what you get rewarded, like me being able to sit in front of you and talk to you, that's like, I have been so ridiculously rewarded, it's like a parent, and you see your child doing well, you are
Right.
rewarded. You succeeded as a parent. Your child is self-sufficient. They're on their
And
own,
and I think that's probably like your number one superpower when you were in school, when you were, the director, because everybody got attracted to you, right? So it was like you were doing it with passion. So people could see through that. I mean, that's easy. Anybody there for, just for credentials or just to get their resume higher. I mean, we could tell through those kind of people.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, that was a no-brainer for you. So is that the time when you said, hey, this is the time I will go ahead and start looking into insurance, opening up my firm?
Yes, it was, because I knew, number one, I needed to eventually work for myself again. That independence is very important to me. In my family, where my parents were the first ones born here, nobody really owned their own business,
Right.
like they all worked for people, and they worked very hard. And let me tell you, they did unbelievable, considering with the levels of education and where they started and where they came from. They did ridiculously well. But my brothers and I, we also knew that our ticket out was education,
Sure.
and that really was the propulsion. So, also running my own practice, it's like I got to, do the dentistry that I wanted. I got to treat the staff the way I wanted. Like, this is what I always dreamed of doing. So when that kind of, was unfortunately not available to me any longer, somebody had mentioned even, a mentor. You know what? You're a nice guy. You're smart. You should go into finances. And I was like, yeah, it's not really me. I didn't have a good experience, with insurance company. And they're like, well, maybe you could be different. And I went back to school. Then I worked for 3 different companies for 3 years. It's the same way when I worked for dentists. I learned all the business part of it as well. And as well as, gaining knowledge. And after the 3 years, I opened a corporation, and I started it from my car. That was my office. I had a desk in my front seat, had a cell phone, and I was teaching like 3 days a week. And then I was running around the country the other 7 days a week, days, nights.
Wow.
Back then I was doing 70 plus hours a week, because I never wanted to give up teaching, because that really fueled me. It's such a passion, that's all I could say. That's one of those things. And Noel, like when you're hiring associates or employees, like you can teach people how to do your systems. You could send your dentist to CE courses. They'll be great, learning, procedures. But I always would say, I can't teach compassion.
No.
And then there were just students that, things would happen. And, afterwards, after we fixed everything and I'd bring them in, it's like, so tell me, how do you feel like, he's like, oh, I'm glad you were able to take care of it. And it was like, but like, what about yourself? Like, didn't you feel bad for the patient initially? Like, didn't you, like, you should have went there first, You
were trying to instill that in them, right?
Yeah. Because you know what? That, especially now where everybody is used to, let's say, a lack of personal customer service. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're in the dental industry, the hospitality industry, the finance industry, we are all in the hospitality industry because we all deal with people. So if you're going to deal with people, you have to deal with them how you decide. But if you ask me, why have I stayed with, the people that I've been with for 20, 30, 40 years, people that handle all of our services, let's say. Or they'll even, my accountant, for example, when they'll say, oh, can you refer me an accountant? And I was like, sure, fine. I've been using them for 40 years. I think that's a great referral. Then they'll ask, what do they charge? And it was like, I don't know. I don't. But I call all the office calls. Boom, they're on top of it.
Right.
I get a piece of paper in the mail that has initials that say IRS on it or something. I just scan it over and it's like, oh yeah, no, we already took care of this. This was your 941, blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
All right, thank you. Like, and then when I get the bill, it's just paid. It really is. It's you, if you just go above and beyond and what you get impressed with customer service, that's all you want. And you could do all the marketing in the world. If people, I always say when they first come into your office, 7 seconds for them to decide was, right? If the waiting room's dirty, first of all, you're done. The bathroom is dirty, you are really done, And the front desk, if the front desk, like they're talking to each other or you see their cell phone is like under the underhang, and I'm standing there trying to check in and I kind of, hello, and
Yeah.
I should be greeted, not because, and you don't know me, but you do know me. I'm a patient. I'm going to help pay your bills. It's like,
Precisely.
you have a greater chance of getting more people from me. I did a discussion last week, and which part of the discussion went to, should these dental practices be taking insurance and, certain plans that don't pay as much. And
it's a hot topic now. Yeah.
Oh, it's a huge topic. And, my opinion, if you have all of your buckets filled and, all of your columns are filled and your goals that you're planning for the next few months, like they're already, already turning and working. Okay, great. But I was always and even when I started insurance and, when I started insurance, my market was dental residents. And back then, dental residents, even though they're still not making a ton, they were making a quarter of what they make now. And yet I'm, selling them disability policies to start and, making $20, $30 commissions, on these things monthly. But every new dentist that became my client sent me like 4 of their friends.
So what was that secret formula? It was that relationship.
Right. It was all about relationship. And that's really, how I have built the finance. And when I consult on dental practices, I give the same kinds of things, whether it's a dental practice, a financial practice, a veterinary practice. It's so unimportant because the same principles. It's the same principles, and patient first, customer first, and that's one of the things that you want as a dentist. And
Correct.
That goes back to even, Noel, you have, associates work for you. You have your hygienist, you have your front desk. When people say, well, how do you get, your most referrals? It's from the people that are working for you. All right. If that team doesn't think that everybody has to come to you, then
right.
You're not doing something right. My office, my office manager, she would come in on Monday and she's like, call this person. They need life insurance. And I was like, oh, who's this? She goes, she's my manicurist. And I heard them talking about insurance. And I mentioned, oh, you got to go to my boss, And when I go to their houses, their family parties, because we've all been together 20, 25 years. I know them. I know their children when they were little kids in the office. And when they'll introduce me and their mother or their neighbor will say, that's you. I want to work for you.
Wow.
Like what better compliment than that?
So with practice management, I know that's part of your component in your core operations that you're doing now. And I'm sure you talk a lot about relationships, right? So that is another aspect that we are transitioning to, because for us, it's all about like, how do we provide the best service to our patients?
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was we ventured out into another company of ours, which is called Dentvia, which we do the virtual admin, the back end work.
Okay.
Just to help out the front desk, to help on my front desk, because that came out of a need. And when we were seeing like staff shortages, we were seeing these guys were overworked, picking up phones, trying to do the breakdowns, trying to call the insurances.
Yeah.
So I kind of had the same mindset, and I was like, this is ridiculous, because our patient was not getting the care that they needed, and they were getting ignored. And like you were saying, like patient walk in, hello, are you there? And they were busy on the phone. And I was like, if you really want to tick somebody off, just ignore them, right?
Yes.
And that is the kind of service we were doing like at that time. And it really hit, rock bottom for me. And I was like, this is something which we definitely need to look into. So, and I completely understand that, where your whole thing is coming from. I want to dive a little bit into your practice management. So you also consult with that portion. What are some of the key takeaways that you tell like a practice that is like, they're at a plateau, they cannot grow, they're doing well, but they need to go to the next level? I understand everything is on a case-by-case basis, but what are some of the key takeaways that you would look at a practice and you'd be like, I got boom, 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 these 3 areas where you probably need to look at? Something like an insight.
Right. So I was just talking to a client earlier this morning, and she's actually taking on a practice that is much larger than she really wants to. But it's an excellent opportunity, location, cost. She's been an associate there for 2 years, like which is always like the best formula. You're buying the practice that you were the associate at, that, the retention is going to be, close to 100% because you're not a stranger coming in. But one of the things, and I think I mentioned it even earlier in a different context, and I'll use myself as an example because it's not any different. I always say, you don't always have to look at dental to say, all right, so this is what the dental world is doing, so I'm going to do this. I always looked at what is everybody not doing, and I want to do that. All right. Or what is a company like Google doing? And what could Studley and Associates do that will make my office feel, like, the Google employees, because, they get the dining and all the service, like all of these things.
Right.
And so sometimes you get a little stale with the staff because they've been there forever. It's like a relationship, it's like, well, they've always been here. I haven't done anything. I haven't kicked anything off. I haven't done it. I don't remember the last time I took them to a CE course. I don't remember when we did an off-site kind of fun thing with the office. So before you start looking to the outside, start looking in and say, all right, what could I do right here with whom I have? Because, and especially now staffing, biggest headache.
Love it. Yeah.
Biggest headache. And, I don't remember the exact numbers, but if a staff member leaves you, the amount of money it costs you, not just hiring that other person, but number one, the loss of productivity that's going to go on, the loss of productivity while you have to train somebody,
Right.
Okay. Like, and how long? Months. Like, and we can't afford to kind of do that. So it's like, what can you do to keep everybody with you and doing everything that's not done? So just as some examples, that I had mentioned, some offsite kind of fun things that you can do with the staff. I started, seeing my staff, they really never broke for lunch. And so what did we start doing? I would tell the office manager, place an order every day. And
Oh, wow.
we order
Okay.
different places. It's not fancy, whatever, but it's like every day. It's like, all right,
They appreciate
lunch
it,
order,
of course. Yeah.
and that's done. I got into yoga years ago. So I got my yoga teacher to now go into my office, and every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, and even if you weren't working that day, people came in, 15 yoga mats go out. And if you can't do floor, you're doing chair yoga, and they'd have yoga. We'd have really good months, right? So on a Friday, once I had Domino's pizza delivered to everybody's house.
Wow.
2 pizza pies, right? And how many people do that, Noel? Right. But
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes, right?
But really, and these aren't expensive things.
No, I love it. I love it.
But I find so many dentists will spend money, to get their clicks up, to get, and, I'm getting people, I have a lot of friends who use, ZocDoc and you know what? People are making appointments on those, and then they cancel in under 24 hours, and ZocDoc still charges you. Right? So, people are, they're shopping for availability, not for personality, for competency. They're like, oh, this guy has a 1 o'clock. Good. I'll take him. I'm going to cancel the 2 o'clock, but let me first see if the 1 o'clock could take me, and then I'll still hold that. And then you end up paying for that. So getting your office involved in this, all right? Because at the end of the year, when Dr. Studley does better financially, guess what? Every single employee does so as well. So it's not just like, I put in like 48 hours this week. I got paid for 40. Okay. But at the end of the year, when you see, wow, look at what I have in my retirement plan, look what I have for this, like all those things. Their kids, some need work. We always have work. And it was like, great.
Okay.
Let this one do that, pay them minimum wage, but I keep it in the family, It's like, wow, you just helped my daughter make money towards college. Like that made it easier for me. Like I don't have to save as much right now. Like she has, a couple of dollars from working for you all summer.
Love it.
You're part of the family.
It brings an important point where I was thinking about when you said that, it just hit my head. Like we always focus on what we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you're talking about the external marketing. You're talking about all those people who we never saw them, right? But we're always ignoring who we have.
Right.
And I love what you just said.
And the strongest, and it's funny, like I learned this also, and I don't know why, like I had to learn this in the financial industry. It's always ask for referrals. As dentists, we've always kind of hid behind, like, hey, doc, love you. And it was like, you love me? Well, send me all your friends. Like we kind of felt shy about that, but
why do you think it's that? Is it an ego? Is it the devious in front of it?
I think it's an ego. I think, and why you get more comfortable maybe in other forms of business like finances, because you know what? I did your insurance. That's great. Now you feel good. I took care of you. Why? Great. We're all good. All right. But it's not like you walk out and you're like, oh my God, feel so much better after getting that insurance. It's
right.
like, but if you walked out after, you came in pain and you walked out and you weren't in pain anymore, like right away, it's like, you got to go to this Studley guy. He's just unbelievable. So we always kind of felt we didn't have to ask for referrals, but I did, because I guess also being brought up in Brooklyn, you're not shy. You're not afraid to talk. And when my patients would say how much they love me, and I was like, one of the ways you could show your love, and they're like, a hug. I was like, that's okay. But how about sending me your friends, your family? And they're like, Doc, you're already treating my aunt and uncle, I was like, all right, so where's your grandmother? It's like, because once people start to refer, they've let you into the club.
Right.
And when I
That's such a
refer
great point.
anybody, like if I referred you to an accountant, to this advisor, you would be like, all right, that's a good referral, and the referrals that I get from you guys are the referrals that I want, because what are the referrals? So the referrals that you get from those patients that, these are your best patients, even though I consider every patient a best patient. It's like, I want more like Mary. Like, we need patients like that. We present treatment plans to her. She understands her husband we treat, and it's just such a pleasure to treat her. She's so appreciative, actually comes 15 minutes early for the appointment. Understands my fees and like appreciates, the cost.
Of course.
And that's where you want to really tap into those people. And another thing that I have found that doesn't go on in the dental industry, but in the financial world and all others, how often do you are in contact with your patients? Once every 6 months if it's a recare, once a year maybe. Then maybe if they don't show, now you have the list of those, and then you have the other person, calling them to get them back in. Well, how come we don't connect with our patients on a monthly basis? All right. I send out a newsletter. I send out, and not all educational stuff. This isn't like, schedule, become my patient, become my client. No, I'm sending out something on mortgages and interest rates. And I'll get people who's like, wow, I didn't even know that. And it was like, I know. And I actually had this written so I understand it. Like, it's not written like one of these financial things that are also above your head. And it only picks like 3 or 4 topics, period. So it's like a 10-minute
read.
Doing
extra. Oh, love it.
But how many people then refer that?
And they come back.
And then they become our clients. So as a dentist, you should be putting out an article every month. Either have your own newsletter, or you can go to the ADA. They have all these services. They'll give you, ADA approved material. And, you also have to, when you send that, you have a send to a friend. You have to have that built in there. I'm telling you, because people then just have to like push a button, throw their friend's name in and do it. Because they have found that when you do that with invitations and stuff too, people are more likely to send quicker.
Correct.
Because now it's just a call to action button, right?
Man, you gave away so many good tips.
I'm glad. I love this. And, next time we should prepare what we're going to talk about, Noel.
No, definitely. I think we touched base on so many different topics, and it was so much more, like, I call them gold nuggets.
No, thank you.
I mean, you were just dropping a lot of gold nuggets. One question for you. What is the future of dentistry, and what is the future of Eric Studley?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, the future of dentistry is probably easier for me, which you would think would be more difficult. The way the market of dentistry is, this is not something new to our landscape. It's not. When I graduated in '85, I worked for 3 franchises. One was Times Square Store Dental. One was Dental World. And what was the other? I don't even remember. Oh, Green Acres Dental. These were all, franchises. And everybody was saying, oh my God, they're going to take over everything. There's going to be no room, no space for us. And, I have always felt we follow the physicians. We do, so, now all the medical groups try to find a private doctor, that's not associated with, one of the big companies. Very difficult. Dentistry is a little bit different than medicine because dentistry is still at least a 50%, where the population gets to choose because they're just not covered for it,
Sure.
Where medicine, more or less, hopefully at least more than used to, everybody has some type of, medical coverage of some sort, even for an emergency or worst case. And hopefully we eventually have every single person has coverage.
Right.
But we always lag behind. So will there only be DSOs now? Definitely not. Definitely not. Because you will still have your patient base that still understands a value. I will tell you, my dentist, is, if he's one of those, once again, if you have to ask how much, then you shouldn't go. You ask my dentist, can this be done? And he says, yes. And then they can do it. And you know what you say at the end? Thank you. Do you know what I mean? And I maybe I'm a little more educated with the cost of dentistry, but, I went through a lot of dentistry, classmate of mine, but very, very big there. They taught us in school as well, no. And, whatever he had to do, and, he never discussed dollars or anything like that. It was just, this is what's going to be done. How, take about this. This is the phases, everything mapped out, beautiful. And then I would go up to the front desk and, to schedule my next appointment. And then it would be like, and she'd say, all right, so it's going to be, X amount. And it's like, okay, do you want to put something down? Do you want to pay for the whole thing? And,
right.
And I always paid upfront because I just so appreciated what they were doing for me, and I also had the total trust that, because sometimes, and you then have to question yourself if a patient, doesn't pay you upfront, or, you really have to drag the money out of them, and it kind of affects the patient, the relationship. Maybe it wasn't explained well enough to the patient, that they really truly have to understand that, this is what it is. It's not like medicine where, you go in, you pay your $15 copay, the doctor gets paid his, $12, whatever, he's getting paid. And, you may not have a copay for that because they're in network. And you may have your in-network patients, and they're phenomenal, and they should be treated no different. And they should also be given the options of doing anything that's out of network that you can do.
Of course.
Right? So if implants are uncovered, you still present that.
Of course.
I've always presented to every patient, to every client, as if they were, multimillionaires.
100%.
You got to let them know what can be. And when you build that kind of trust, because we've had this, and where like even the assistants or back at school, the students are like, I can't believe that they're going to, it's like, well, they understand the value. And you see how miserable they are with what they've been going through with what's in their mouth. Like they've made this commitment and they will do this, because right. How many times have you seen a patient and then disappear, and then 2 years later comes in and then says, you know what, doc, now let's do it. Because financially, a lot of people, and the way I was also raised, if you can't pay for it up front, you don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And a lot of people have that mentality.
you have patients, they're not going to use a credit card. You
Right.
know, my parents didn't have a credit card until I got them their first one.
But one of the things that I learned from you while I was in school was, in the absence of value, price always becomes an objection.
Yes.
And I feel like if a dentist or a dental office, they're not able to convey that value to that patient, what they're getting. Of course, even if it's like, $20, it's going to be an objection.
Oh, completely. But what you also, as the practitioner, you also have to do, like you can't do, I'd like $20 worth of jelly beans. Like
Right.
you can't do dentistry like that. Those cases always fail. If you needed to do 3 implants, but the patient can only pay 2, so you're going to, try to make the case work on 2, it's
No.
going to fail. And the patient will not remember, or, when you said, look, it needed 3 implants, but you said you really can only swing 2. Can I do it with 2 and cantilever and everything?
Yeah.
Like, well, then, doc, let's do, oh, thank you. You're the best, doc. And once this fails, you're not the best doc anymore, and that's where you have to kind of, and this is not an ego thing. This is, you go to a cardiologist, the surgeon, the heart surgeon, and they say, unfortunately, you need to have a quadruple bypass. You don't say, you think you can get away with just doing 3 valves? It's like, no, you still won't live if we do 3. Like, we don't make a deal.
Love the analogy. Love the analogy.
But it really is. And that's how, and it's not being a hard nose with the patient, but it's saying to them, in order for this case to be successful, this is what I have to do.
Of course.
And in the interim, we could do something as a temporary measure, because I need to hold the space and the occlusion. So we can do, something removable right now. And while you're saving to really do this properly,
Exactly.
we'll do this. And let me tell you, if the patient doesn't come back, that's okay, because that's doomed for failure, And
I feel you just did them a favor.
yeah. And there's enough parameters when you're working in somebody's mouth that can go wrong, that we really need to control the parts we can.
And that's from experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Dr. Studley, your last question? What is your future? What are you doing right now, and what's coming ahead for you?
Well, fortunately, as I mentioned when we were talking off screen, a few months ago, we merged our company and now partnered with another financial firm, which includes my entire staff. Because whenever you tell people that you partnered, it's like, oh, so where are you leaving? When are you going? So
Right.
I have no plans for me to go anywhere. If anything, this has like reinvigorated me.
Nice.
Because now I have so many more resources, at our fingertips. It was also quite important to me that in doing this move, that I didn't just think about myself, my entire company, and it's all my employees from start to finish. Everybody we're all the same. And our clients, like I always mention, bringing in the specialists, will have, access now to a greater host of financial products, wealth accumulation, assets. And my partners are, first of all, phenomenal in their space. I've been working with them, subcontracting, for more than 20 years. And Studley has no plans to go anywhere,
Love it.
We're a virtual company. At least, I am, and 7 or 8 of my employees, all virtual. So
What's the name of the company?
it's a Northeast Private Client Group, NEPCG.
Northeast.
And
Northeast Private Client Group.
right. And my company, is Eric Studley and Associates Incorporated. So
Nice.
you could find us all together.
Good deal. And anybody can just Google and they'll
Yep.
find them.
Right. And they can go to our website, www.drericstudley.com, or email
We'll have
us.
a link below.
Right.
Okay.
Email us at insurance@drericstudley.com.
Awesome. Great. Well, Dr. Studley, we're going to land the plane. It was a great honor and a pleasure. Seriously,
thank you.
To know. I think I got a little bit more insight about you today than I was when I was in dental school.
Yeah,
And
that's what's nice about keeping a relationship going.
And the one thing that I really cherish and I really appreciate now that I'm so grateful for is elevating my mindset throughout the years, so I can kind of connect with you on your frequency now and understand what you're thinking. Because if you would have asked me, if you would have told me all this stuff like when I was in dental school, I don't think I could have related to you at that time.
Right. No, you gotta get in it.
Yeah. And I truly appreciate that, your time, your efforts, everything that you've been doing. I love it. And everyone, this is Dr. Noel Liu. I'll be checking out. Make sure to like and subscribe. We will be coming up with more episodes. And again, thanks a lot, Dr. Studley.
Thanks, Noel. Thank you all.